talk to today, please contact Crisis Services Canada by either calling them at 1-833-456-4566 all hours of the day. Or you can text them at 45645 at 4 p.m. to 12 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, you're not alone, and Crisis Services Canada is here to help.
The FHN network is sponsored in part by Hoddle Services. If you're looking for a disc jockey, karaoke host, video jockey to videographer, our company can help. With over 20 years of experience, we would be happy to help with your special event within Ontario, Canada. You can contact us at 226-988-2895 or visit us at our website at hoddleservices.vpweb.ca. That's HODDLE Services. We look forward to hearing from you and helping with your special event.
Hey, what's going on, OTP fans? And thanks for tuning into the live recording of Off the Puck Hockey Season 3, Episode 5. Can't wait to get rocking tonight. We're on the FHN Network, ASTV out west, Rogers TV Channel 20 every Saturday night, Rogers Channel 13 in St. Thomas in London. Unbelievable stuff. We're growing so quickly. And before I really get into it, hats off to the AHL and their female reffing crew for the first time in history. Congratulations. You know my background in women's hockey. Really proud of the AHL for stepping up. So my hat's off to you, sir. It's official, folks. Every game from here forward is going to count towards the standing. That's right. Hockey's back. The NHL is rocking and really pumped up to watch what's going on. Matthews is back in the lineup tonight. He's going to be a stud. Already so many storylines throughout the league. Hughes, best goal in a long time, spectacular OT goal, best selling, going to be an NHL 23 for sure. Kraken win their first game in franchise history. So much more to talk about. My co-host is going to join us a little bit later in the show, but tonight we got a guest, and he's a return guest, one of the best guys I've ever met. Full of character, skill, hardworking, and just absolute gem. And we're looking forward to having Tim Turk on the show tonight. What's up, Turkey?
Holy smokes. Like last time we were talking, man, it wasn't this professional.
No, it really wasn't. I was just screwing around in my basement, and now I'm screwing around in my basement, but I got an office.
Yeah, it's like official. Like, it's unbelievable. And one of the things that I think is really cool is when we're bringing information to people, and like for me to be a guest on any show, I was so stoked that you contacted me to get back on, because when we finished off, when you were just starting out a couple of years back, you were like, hey, we got to get you back on here, Turkey. And then all of a sudden the call came, and I'm like, okay, we got to get this done. This is unbelievable. Just to get as much information out there to the listeners as possible.
Well, now we're on Rogers TV Channel 20 and Rogers TV Channel 13. So St. Thomas, London, and Kitchener Tri-City area. Next stop, the world. But we'll start here. We'll start in southern and southwest Ontario, but really glad to have you back on. So what have you been doing during these COVID times? How'd you keep busy?
COVID has been bittersweet for me, Finer. Like, one of the things that I can say technically is because of the restrictions and all the shutdowns, it's allowed me to be able to type with more than one finger because of this, the Zoom, like I was that untech savvy person. I just wanted to be hands-on on the ice with the athletes, the hockey players, so I could see, be there, see, hear, feel what's going on, to be able to make correctives and help them. But then I couldn't do that. So they came up with this stuff where we're online, And then all of a sudden someone says, hey, I'll send you a video, or can you do a presentation? Like the academies, we're all the academies that are out there all across Ontario, across Canada and the world. I'm doing presentations on shooting and scoring to the coaches and the players. And now I'm like, I don't have to look at the G when I hit it and make sure. And so I'm getting quick on that. And I know I learned how to share my screen. That's the sweet part of it. The bitter part is that I can't be there, but we're still getting information out to them. So all this time that's gone by that we've been restricted, it's been better for me to learn how to operate a computer more, so I can get the information out and share my screen and show visuals and get feedback and then telestrate and stuff like that. So that's what I've been doing up until we opened up again, and then I'm so grateful to get back out on the ice. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So being an NHL shooting coach, have you gotten back with any of the players and reconnected?
So a lot of the players I did during COVID sent in video, like I was saying. And then once they opened up out west first. So I ended up going out to Edmonton and Vancouver and working with a bunch of players out there, just as the stage 1 and stage 2 had lifted, and we got to get to go out there. So yeah, like I got to work with a bunch of really good players out there. There's some up and coming prospects that are out everywhere. I can't wait to see who gets this kid that's coming up in this draft that way. This Ryder kid, to see how that plays out. It's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out.
What impressed you about him?
You know what, like talking about academies, I met him at the Hill Academy. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that impressed me about him was his demeanor coming into the rink. It's like, who's this kid with his shoulders up and back and chest really forward, and just it looked like he was focused on what he needed to do. He had a plan. He had a purpose when he walked into the rink, and he knew that he needed to get better and wanted to get better every single day, asking questions. So the first thing that impressed me about him was that demeanor that he had, the way he looked. It was unreal. And then the second thing was when he stepped on the ice, I was like, okay, so he looks like he plays, and he plays like he looks, and he's serious. He's serious about becoming one of the best players out there.
That's unbelievable. So you and I quickly talked off air about, being home in COVID. And I actually, one of the things that excites me is, because I haven't spoken with you in 2 years, is the science behind being an NHL shooting coach. And how has that changed over the last 2 years? You said you haven't been on the ice. Were you able to develop anything new over the past few months that you were able to implement over the last couple of months?
Yeah, one of the things that I focus on ever since, from the beginning of COVID, there's two main things. The first one is introducing variety of formations to the players, because a lot of players, when they get pigeonholed or they get restricted on doing stuff, they revert to comfort when they don't have the opportunity to talk to coaches as much. So they just do things comfortably. And then that usually mimics itself. It's like they become habitual. They have habits that they do, whether it's a single leg shot or a stride formation release. So I'm introducing to them saying, hey, if you look like a certain way, whether it's a single leg shot release or it's a stride formation, or you had to jump to something, now you're allowing yourself to become unpredictable, because a lot of players do the same thing every time, the same timing. So the second thing is timing changes. So if you synchronize stuff and chain react, it can be deceptive. But then, we had number 34 is coming back in the lineup, and that yep. He's notorious for changing timing when he's releasing a puck. And what that does, whether you put a leg out, pause, and then shoot when you have a high rate of speed going up, or you synchronize your motion patterns, or you go cross ice, cross body, away from your body like he does. What that does is it raises anticipation levels in defensive players and goalies, because they're wondering when he's going to shoot. When he drops into a formation, then he delays, and the goalie's like, that's when you're going to shoot, because it's so deceptive in changing the timing. So those two things would be the top two things that I worked on technically. And then the last one, the third one, is recommending or suggesting that players lower their flex in their sticks.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Now, actually, let's talk about the stick, and that's important because a lot of, you know what, I've taken, I think we met around, looks like about 8 years ago. I think we met about 6, 7, yeah, about 6 to 7 years ago, Tim. And I'll tell you something. I got a quick story. This summer, I worked with two NCAA female players, Maddie and Celine, who were playing for the Maine Black Bears. And a lot of the stuff I was teaching them, I remembered from when I began to work with you. You were the first skills coach, like specific skills coach that I had really ever worked with outside of power skating. So you were kind of, out on an island because you were really the only specific shooting coach out there. And I had the pleasure of working with you. And we were talking about that. And of course, if you go and look at their goals, Maddie comes across the top of the circle, turns in, and you can just see that top hand off leg shot. And her and Celine had never done it before. I said, I learned that from Tim Turk. And now I'm giving it to you. Let's pass the buck.
Yeah.
And they both scored in their first game of the season.
Come on. See that?
Maddie hadn't scored in 2 years, and she scored the most beautiful goal to me. And like I said, a lot of it was because we were working on going from the right foot and the left foot. And you can shoot off of both feet and both create deception. And they never understood that, but they buried it. And I just wanted to give you a quick plug.
That's freaking awesome. Thanks. The one thing, if I'm going to send a message to, the people that are watching and listening, is if you're a coach or a player out there, ultimately, I like to create a foundation in what the posture levels are. But it doesn't really matter what you do with your feet or your lower body. What matters is that you maintain a low center of gravity. Your posture is low, your hips are back, your shoulders are forward. And I've always said, when you notice good shooters out there, they look like they explode out of their chest. They look like their chest is going forward, like it's like a big bomb going off. And that means they're getting lower as they shoot. So I would recommend to all the coaches out there, if there's something you were to tell your players to help them to get better shots, is to get low, get the hips back. You don't have to say bend your knees. Just got to keep their hips back so the shoulders go forward. And then that's going to help them to create a little bit more power. And then to me, once there's more power on their shots, it's going to cause second and third chance opportunities. And then it's the coach's job to make sure that the offensive setup has them kind of like swarming rebounds or getting to the right areas or being ready for what comes next.
For sure. And I do want to talk about the stick because you briefly mentioned the flex. I want to get into that deeply. But another thing that I was talking about with the young kids, again, that came from yourself, Tim, was the top hand and bottom hand, control hand, power hand, as opposed to top and bottom, right? There's a purpose for each, and teaching them the right way to, hold the stick and having the puck a little closer to your body. And you know how these kids reach, right? They got that reach shot where they're reaching out and they're trying to fling the puck like a lacrosse ball. I mean, that's how they all start, right? And they all think it's a good shot. And they said, you know what, this is how we want to do it in the future. And I'll tell you, just that posture change is mind-blowing for a lot of young kids, even adults. Adults, they see me working on it just out front of the net. They're like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I'm just working on this. And again, something I got from you, and I'm just bringing it along.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, to me, it could be any age, any level. And sometimes, I also like to mention that just because someone is doing something that needs to be corrected, it doesn't mean they need to change it. We want to take the word change out and replace it with modify or fine tune. We're fine tuning what you have, just little subtle to create range of motion. Like sometimes some players, they play with their elbow in tight. So that lessens the range of motion. Once they start to elevate their elbow up, there's more range of motion there. And that could, I elevated it like 6 inches. You only need to elevate it a centimeter to make a change so that it's not too difficult to feel comfortable with, and that's the thing about players nowadays. If it's not comfortable, they ain't doing it. So you got to find a way to minute those little correctives so that eventually it turns into a bigger kind of modification. And that the stick nowadays, I'll tell you, Finer, the game is so fast now. And one of the things that I've experienced is when players control the puck and they go into certain different directions, their bottom hand it's always changing when they go around. It's sliding around, a little bit like that. And then when they shoot, it's time to find a shot. Well, I'm going to do a wrist shot, but if their hand's too far apart, because it's a quick release, and then they get compromised on their shot. So the proper position for their top hand and their bottom hand, they got to find that through consistency. So if they have a stiff stick and their hand gets tighter together, then there's going to be no kick return for them. That's what we see as coaches. We're like, well, you're not getting the puck's not going as fast as your hands. Well, it's because their stick is too stiff. So a lot of players that I find that make really good adjustments are the ones who lower the flex in their stick, so they don't have to change their hands that fast. They don't have to try and compromise where their hand positioning is, because the stick flex supports it whether their hand is, close together or it's farther apart. They still get that flex on there. And that kick return technology is what we're trying to help them with.
Love it. And all right, we have to get to this all about the stick. Tim, you're a professional NHL shooting coach. You need to fit a child for the stick. What are the 2 or 3 things you are talking to the child about? How are you fitting that child perfectly for the stick? Because again, I ran a camp this summer, 6 weeks in Maine, and I would say 99% of the kids had all their sticks wrong, whether it was length, lie, flex, whatever the case is. What do you recommend to kids or even the NHLers? How do you do it? What's the first thing you should do?
So let me start off with the NHLers first of all. Having the opportunity it's a little bit different when the players are pro, because when they modify things, they can do them in really small increments because they have the ability to do so. And what I mean by that is that could be taking a pattern, kind of like a pattern like this, and then I can see if the curve is here. I can explain to. It depends on the level, but like I can say I need to move this inward a little bit just to take the loft off the pattern, just a little bit inward, and that can be done, and then that could change the spin on a puck. But that's for a pro, And then my rule of thumb is, whenever I've modified a pro's stick when it comes to flex, height, and lie, I think I don't know what the actual number is, but over 100 over the last 5 to 6 years, 100 NHL players, bona fide NHL players. And those players that I've worked with on their stick as a stick fitting, I've never stiffened anybody's stick. I've never lowered the lie, and I've never shortened the stick. I've always made it a bit higher, a bit more flexible, and a higher lie. So the angle of the stick versus the shaft, the shaft versus the blade, I've always upped it. I've never made it lower in a pro situation. Now in the kids, now we're a little bit restricted and challenged with what we can do, because there's just certain patterns that are available based on, and all the stick companies have all the same patterns. They just call them different, like E2028, P29, P92s, stuff like that. But for me, when I fit, let's say a beginner, it could be anywhere from a 6-year-old to a 12-year-old, or a 13 or 14-year-old that's just starting to play. I always recommend that the height of the stick with their skates on is minimum their bottom lip. And what that height allows is for that particular player's hands not to go in front of the body to cross over. It keeps it a little bit to the side because of that particular height, based on what their posture is. There's a lot of criteria, but generally the height of the stick minimum is at their lip. And then somewhere up into between the bridge of their nose, or just kind of like right up in here somewhere. Because if you think about it, if you have a taller stick and you have a kid who's 11 or 12, normally within 2 to 6 months, there's a growth spurt or a growth pattern. And that's one of the things that parents and players neglect to do when they're younger, is they grow the stick with them. If they keep the same stick for, hopefully they keep the same stick for, a full season, then by the end of the season, the stick was here, and at the end of the season, they're like, what the heck happened to my stick? Well, you grew. So your stick should have grown with you. So they're adjusting all the time when that happens. And
explain the lie. Explain why that's important, because again, just one of the things that a lot of parents, a lot of kids don't understand. They get the stick, they say 6, they see 5, they see 6.5, they see certain lies. What's the best way you would explain the lie to a parent that's watching or listening?
Like, so to me, the lie on the stick, like the way it works is the lower that the shaft is to the ice, the lower the lie is. So that could be a 4 lie, that could be a 5 lie, that could be a 6 lie, with with the blade. So pretending the blade is flat on the ice in that angle. So that hand position can change in a younger player. We can adjust their hand positioning. If their hand's always right here and they're using a 5-lie, so that would mean that maybe the heel of the stick is kind of like it's upward like that when we need the blade to be flat. So they can make an adjustment with their hands in a younger age. When they get older like us, guys like us, we can't adjust our hands because that's what our habitual motion patterns are. So now we got to adjust the stick. Now we got to make the stick lie change or get that 4 or 5 lie in there. But I always start off with the highest lie possible, the least amount of curve. So like the old school Medano, the old or PA, yeah, just flat for now. Like let their hands do the work instead of usually that's what we curve a stick for in the old days, was to ease off what we had to do to work to get the puck to do something. We put a curve in it, then we lofted it back, and we push the puck, and it starts to elevate on its own. Depending on how you use the stick, to me, it depends on the player and what they need to work on when it comes to elevating a puck. So the beginners, like you said, to answer your question, high lie, a low flex. I met a kid this morning. I was on the ice with another academy out here in Vaughan called the Everest Academy or whatever.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
They're called Everest. The kid was, I think he was a 9-year-old. He had a 10 flex. A 10 flex stick.
Jesus.
CCM.
Where'd you even find that? I can't even see. I don't even think I've seen a 10 flex in a store.
You should see this kid shoot though. I'm not going to say it's weight versus the flex. Like someone says, well, if you weigh 100 pounds, you should have a 50 flex. Weight has nothing to do with how much you flex a stick. It's all about technique. And every player is like a fingerprint. So their technique's different. So we can have six kids or 6 young players that weigh the same height, but they all shoot differently. So one can use a 10 flex, one might use a 15 flex, one might use a 20 flex. It just depends on the technique. But the 10 flex that this particular individual was using, he was ripping rockets from the blue line.
Wow. Just wrist shot snappers.
Wrist snappers, like combos. And he was hitting the glass. And I'm like, holy smokes, like what flex do you have there? Because I'm looking at the stick and I haven't seen you know how they have the junior stick, then there's the youth one. That. So this was a junior stick shaft with a 10 flex. And he was like, I see him bending this. He was like shooting and his stick was going like this from the point. His stick was bending like this. It was bending like this. And I'm like, is that a custom or what? And you got close to it. It's like CCM. So the CCM 10 flex. So that's a great question. The flex, the lie, the pattern, and the height of your stick can make the difference.
No, yeah, it's something that I harped all summer. I've been harping it, like I said, since we started skating together, and I just think it's a huge advantage if you can figure that out. And one of the terms that I always used was when you go to work at the construction site, you bring a hard hat to work. You bring your tools. You don't just show up to work with the wrong tools, or you're going to get fired from your job. No different in the hockey world. If you show up with a CCM with a 5 lie 80 flex, and then your backup stick, all of a sudden it snaps, and your backup stick is a 95 flex with a 6 lie, you might as well be you're putting with a driver.
That's exactly it. And they got to be identical. If you have a game stick, well. Here's a good example, a little bit different for me because I'm blessed to have sponsors and stuff, but all the sticks you see behind me are all identical. So if I break one, and I do break lots of them, if I break one, then I just grab another one and it's identical. It's the same feel, it's the same confidence level. And that's the thing about players, like if they don't have and then again, we have to sacrifice. I get it as parents. These things are friggin' expensive.
I know.
It's super. I don't want to get into that, but I get passionate about it because I'm the shooting coach that's recommending the lightest stick out there, and the lightest stick is like buying a friggin' Cavalier.
It's like the Ferrari.
Yeah, exactly. So, but still, I'm like, then I get kind of impartial to, like the parents like, well, we can't afford it. And I'm like, well, you know what? Write down on a piece of paper what you spend per week and I'll find the money for you. And if you don't have it, I'll help. You know what I mean? Just stuff like that. But it's so, to me, the way this stuff is being priced out, but we got to help them as much as possible. And when they get what they want, they get confidence. When they get what they need, they build confidence. So that's what I'm here for. I want to help the parents as much as I can to help their youngsters become better players and improve every day.
No, that's awesome. So now with the NHL season's obviously underway, do you have anything planned? Are you going to be heading out to any NHL practices or anything like that recently, or just the video has been the big thing?
Video's been the big thing. The other thing is that if you're a consultant or a contractor, the COVID issues, the NHLPA and the NHL has big, huge restrictions on I'm not sure what the actual fees are, but there's premiums for insurances
Yeah.
that you have to pay to attend, and right now that's not in the books. Like all the teams are like, hey, we just got back now. Let's get used to our team, and then if we need any outside help, we'll bring it in later on. But they're not willing to pay any premiums, it's a big premium from what I understand, like 6 digits to
Jesus.
yeah, just to attend. So there's a few of us guys that are out there around the world that are sitting waiting to. But you know what? The funny thing is, Finer, I am getting charged out of, like, the reason I got to the NHL, or I feel part of the reason, is working with the beginners, working with the young 7 and 8 year olds. I get the question all the time. Hey, Coach Turk, my kid's 10 years old. It shows you only work with NHLers. Like, no, I will work with your son or daughter. I don't care how they play, what their level is. I'll do what I can to help, because that's what got me to where I am today.
No. Well, like I said, the first time we worked together was with the young kids, and it was at the Vaughan Sportsplex, and it was a great practice. And like I said, I probably learned more about shooting in an hour than I learned my entire life, and I brought it with me my entire coaching career. So there's been a lot of people gone to your website just because I've said something. So put the check in the mail, and we'll call it even.
Yep, that's for sure.
How you've got a bunch of clinics and things like that. Was that something you've kind of developed over the last? I know you've had camps and stuff, but I mean, you go onto the website timturkhockey.com, and you've got everything in there. You got video analysis, clinics, everything. Did that just come out of nowhere, or have you always had that? Because I don't remember you having all of this.
Yeah, no, that's just with the COVID thing. Like, most of the time I'm traveling quite a bit, and because that travel's been restricted, and more specifically to the U.S., we've been restricted. And so I'm like, let's do what we can here, but the video analysis stuff it's on fire, because I can't be everywhere. So, like Johnny's dad or Joni's dad is outside, and they're on the driveway, and he's taking a video with his phone, 30 seconds, and he shifts it off to Turkey. And then I'm like, here for a small fee, because I'm taking time to do it, I'm going to give as much feedback as I can in stages, so that they can realize what they're doing good. And that's one thing I feel some coaches neglect, is to find some positive to match with anything that needs to be modified. And don't just talk about all the negative stuff. Find something that's really good. And like for me, a lot of times it's the player's lower body is having issues supporting the great upper body movements that they have. So I'm like, look at how good you're doing this. Your arm's going straight. You're keeping your hands away from your body, but your hips are going forward. So let's get your hips back to support that hand speed. And, you talk positive about them, and then it's easier for them to correct themselves when they see it. So I feel like video analysis, and as a coach, like, how do you find tendencies? How do you find, analytical things, and you're teaching your players, about the other team. Like, hey, look at number 17. Every time he lifts his foot up, he's shooting. So when he lifts his foot up, either get in front of him or knock his wee-wee off or something. Do what you got to do to stop that, because we know it's coming, kind of thing, right? And that's important.
Absolutely. Tim, if there was one or two things that you would tell parents when you're trying to teach your kid to shoot, because obviously not every parent is going to be able to bring in a shooting coach or have private lessons. But if there's something they could do at home to change their posture, what are 2 or 3 things you would recommend to a parent that's watching this that knows nothing about hockey, and said 3 things that you could do for posture?
That's a good question, man. One thing is to isolate the arm and hand technique, and to do that, I would ask the players, these are their toes up here, so they stand with both feet facing the net. and then put the puck. If they're righty, it goes beside the right of them, or if they're lefty, it goes to the left of them. And they can't move their body, but they have to act like they're sitting in a chair. Get their hips back so they start to lower their puck. Just shoot without moving their feet. So it's like toes are facing the net, hips are facing the net, shoulders are facing the net, hips are back, so their shoulders are forward. And it doesn't have to be 100 shots. It could be 10 shots, but to me, it's not how fast you shoot 10 pucks. It's how fast and correct you shoot one puck 10 times. So have a checklist, like find out, like there's visuals. Like I would encourage, the only reason I do stuff like this is to get Instagram followers.
Well, that's it. Well, I tell everyone, they said, you know what? They're like, well, what should I do? I'm like, listen, you can listen to me, or you can go listen to somebody that knows, whether that's Turkey or Daryl Belfry or Ellis or any of these skill guys. YouTube, Google is an excellent resource for anybody.
Absolutely.
It's got everything on there. And then you find someone you like. It's like a golf coach. You find the one that you like, that fits the need that you need. And a lot of kids that I find, it's posture and the wrong stick. And I said both of those simple corrections with reps and the right advice.
Exactly. So 2 feet facing the net. The second thing would be if they can't flex the stick more than 3 inches. If they're shooting and it's hard for them to flex the stick, it's too stiff. They should be able to flex it 3 inches, no matter where their hand is. Or between 2.5 to 3 inches. It's hard to measure where the hand is. And the parents looking but they got to see it flex. And one indicator of that stick flexing is when it does flex. What happens is when they flex their stick, the blade will go over the puck. You'll see as the stick's being flexed, you'll see the blade go over the puck. If they can't get the blade over the puck when they're pushing really hard, then they need to try and lower their flex, or wait till that stick dies or breaks and then get another one. Get another one when it's time. And a third thing would be to watch the puck hit the target, not watch it go there. So a lot of times when players shoot, they'll have their head down, they'll take the shot, and then they'll watch the puck go to the target. Even though we know the net's not going to move, they stay in the same spots the whole time. But the thing that's and I dislike the thing that's inside the net that plays games, and they got pads on and all that poo-poo. Mm-hmm. I don't like those. Well, I dislike goalies, but not the person, but the position. So instead of watching the puck get there, you can look at the puck. It's okay to look at it, get it set up, and then try and exercise looking at the target and then shooting and seeing it get there. And that'll help them to build on accuracy and hone in on or snipe or fine tune that area of the accuracy they need to hit.
Have you ever worked with anyone that you've had controversy with? And what I mean by that is, everybody, every trainer, or every player has had multiple trainers their entire life. And all of a sudden you come on the ice and maybe they don't like the philosophy or they struggled with the philosophy. Have you ever encountered that at all, maybe at the pro level?
I never have.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm the most blessed person in the world. Like the one player came over one time and he was from Eastern Europe, and the Eastern Europeans are different culture and attitude from other players until you get to know them or they get to know you, and then you're inside circles. Everyone knows you to be accepted. You got to be inside the circle. He came over one time and he basically said, without saying so many words, I make $5 million a year. What can you do to help me? So I'm like, is this a test? Like what? Like why would you even? Because I was there all the time and he wouldn't partake in it. Because he was a pretty good shooter as it was. And that's what his reputation was. So I'm like, okay. So I go get the radar gun and I'm like, okay, take your hardest shot. Take your hardest shot. Not a slap shot, but take your hardest quick release because we can't take slap shots in the NHL. Mm-hmm. So he took a shot and it was like 79, 78, 79, and 80 miles an hour wrister. 80 miles an hour wrister. So that's pretty good. So I'm like, okay. I'm like, that's pretty good. Like, and I usually visit NHL teams once every 2 weeks, maybe once a month, depending on the schedule, depending on what's needed. So I made a comment to this player when he was shooting, he was locking his elbow, but right after the puck left, he would retract his arm. It'd be like this. He'd lock it in it. So I said, when you shoot, when you go and shoot, keep it there. Lock it. Like, don't let it retract. Don't unlock your elbow. Keep it locked out. Hold it there. And then when you get to games, it's going to help. So I didn't know if he was going to do it or not, but he did. And when I went back, I got the radar gun, 82, 83.
Wow.
So it adds 2 to 3 miles an hour. Miles an hour is hard to achieve, like kilometers
Oh
an
yeah,
hour.
huge.
Yeah. So this particular player is like, okay, now I get it. Now I like this guy. And that guy was Kovalev.
Oh
So,
wow.
there's
Not bad. He was
yeah,
too busy stick handling. That's the problem. He had no time
yeah,
for wrist shots to Turkey.
Man, Finer, I don't mean to talk your ears off, but I've seen Covey when when players play keep away,
Yeah.
they just fool around. So his mission in keep away, when guys would challenge him, would be to put the puck through someone's tuck of their skate. And I've seen him do it more than 5 times on purpose.
Jesus.
Like just,
That's
like it would rattle
incredible.
through, and then he just throws his arms up and says, okay, you're done. Next. You know what I mean? Like,
If I do that to you, you're not allowed to play with me anymore.
yeah,
Sorry.
you're done. Yeah, you're done. Yeah,
That's
he was, but he was really good. His hands were really good. I learned a lot from him. Like he showed me a puck. Here's a puck. I just got lines on it so I can show what spin means, right? But if you look at this is this actual size of a puck. He's like, Covey's like, I should be able to put this wherever I want. Look how big this is. If it's going this way, I can do whatever I want. Not this way. It's bigger this way. It's like, so that's why I like it to spin, stay tight and straight, and I could fit it through anywhere. It could go through almost anywhere if you think about it.
That's right.
And then you have these coaches that say, okay, hang on a second. If you're going to pass the puck this way, just throw your stick right there. So the visual is, I see a blade, I can't pass. But what do you mean you can't pass? You can pass it through here. You can pass it over here. You can pass it through here. Pass it over here. You can pass wherever you want. But what happens is when we talk about stick lane coverages and stuff like that, the visual, when someone puts 2 hands on their stick in the stick lane, it's like, I can't pass there. When there's all kinds of places you can put it through anyways.
I remember I got lucky, and Adam Oates took me aside for about 2 hours one afternoon up in Vaughan, and again, similar. That 2 hours with him cutting video of Galchenyuk, Crosby, and guys playing on lines with guys. I'm not going to mention their names because he was absolutely tearing them. New ones, because one of his clients was on there, and in 2 hours he broke down the clip of a Montreal game and was like, this guy's playing with this guy, and this is why he doesn't have 40 goals and why he's only got 23. He's wide open in so many lanes because he thinks he can't pass, but you can get it there. Yeah. He absolutely is open. In the NHL, you don't have space. There's no such thing as open.
No. And that's I'm glad you brought that up, because some players, we have this thing that I kind of made a component in scouting. I've made a few different components, a few different things over the years, many, many years. But I call it the sphere of influence. So like a sphere is like a 3D ball around a player. And this one player that I had the opportunity to meet in Tampa, just a little guy, and you're going to know who I'm talking about. He went to the Rangers.
Yep.
So Marty St. Louis goes to the Rangers, and guys are pretty accommodating. A new player's coming in, but he's a bona fide player. He's been in the NHL for 12 years at that point, like a long time. So guys are like, hey, well, geez, he might be on my line. So I'm going to go up to him and say, hey, hey, Marty, where do you like me to pass you the puck? Because, like, do you want it over here? Do you want it over there? So Marty grabs his stick like this and swings it around his head. And he's like, just pass it to me anywhere in here. Anywhere in here. I don't give a shit where it's going. Just pass it to me in here. I got it. So, guys are like, all right, that's no problem. That's easy. Like stuff like that. But his sphere of influence, like the way he managed the puck, how he protected it, how he surrounded it, how he shielded it, even before he shot it or did something with it, was phenomenal. I always tell kids, if you think you're a good puck control person, man, just YouTube Marty St. Louis clips and watch him with the puck. He's a wizard.
Oh, he was phenomenal. And you know what? Before I let you go, I only have one last question, and that is, in today's game, there's a lot of great shooters out there, but who, in your opinion, are outside of Matthews? I know he's one of your favorites, but who in the top three? Who are the top 3 shooters in the league?
Well, I'm a big fan of Tarasenko. Tarasenko, like the guys that are playing right now, Tarasenko's got a really good, deceptive, accurate, like quick release where he just uses wrists. And a lot of players push and pull, He just does that instead of a big push and pull. So that he's one player. Another player I like that is an up and comer, is a defenseman that's really good with, is Ekman Larson.
Mhm.
Like Ekman Larson, he exercises all different types of releases at all times, and it's condensed. It's really, really small. When you condense and compact things, it's hard to read. It's hard for goalies to read when it comes off, and that creates deception as well. And then I got to mix. I got to go. People think that Gallagher is a different, unique kind of guy, but he can get the puck off quick and elevate it in little places. And lastly, another guy that I like is, do you remember Andrew Ladd?
Yes, of course.
Like Andrew Ladd, like he would get within 6 to 4 feet or 4 to 6 feet from the goalie, and he could score across their body, like so good, like in tight. And he's got a really good release. But those would be the 3 or 4 guys that come to mind.
Well, listen, it's always a pleasure to have you on, and I'm so glad you were able to make the time for me. And like I said, I'm a huge supporter. If anybody's watching, you want to check out Tim's stuff, you got to go to timturkhockey.com. Check out all of his social media page, everything he's got. Follow it, learn it, put it in as your shooting Bible, because I'm telling you, you can take it with you, and teach it to your kids and teach it to your teams. It's fantastic stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. Ty, was unbelievable. I'll do this anytime, as long as I know we're getting this message out to somebody. I'm in.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, Tim. And like I said, we're definitely going to have you back. I just want to say thanks once again to Tim Turk, NHL shooting coach, for joining us tonight. He said, even just him jumping on, it's always an honor to have him, and I'm really excited that he was able to join us tonight. Again, timturkhockey.com. Make sure to follow on all the social media platforms. I'm your host, Tyler Fines. My boys, Styles, Walker, they're having the night off. That's all right. Our producer, Matt Huddle, behind the scenes, makes the magic happen. Marty Zylstra provides our theme music. He's the man. Going to help out with our social media. So Marty, thanks so much for the help. But this is Off the Puck Hockey, and we're out of here. Let's go.